Welcome to You're Still Doing That. I'm Matt Miller, and welcome to a podcast where I talk with everyday people about their childhood joys that have endured into adulthood. A podcast about the thing you've loved your whole life and continue to do, practice, and work at today. If you love the podcast and listen to it frequently, please visit my website, www.you'restilldoingthat.com, and leave a tip. You can also get caught up in all the past episodes and answer fun questions and polls, or make a suggestion about a future guest. I'm sure your friends and family would love to get nominated to be on the podcast. Remember, www.you'restilldoingthat is the only podcast website to check out. With us today, I'm very excited to welcome Catherine Gairard. Welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. I hope you're doing fine, great, awesome.
I am doing wonderful today it's a beautiful Sunday morning where I am. What time is it where you're at?
Here where I am in Greece right now, it's 5:20 in the afternoon, so it gets dark pretty fast. But it's been a good day either. It's not cold at all. Mediterranean weather, so it's perfect.
Well, that's great. I remember when we were chatting beforehand, and you told me you were 7 hours ahead of me. And so
Yeah.
I was looking at the time zones. I'm like, what country is she going to be in? I'm not sure.
Yeah,
Well,
it's
welcome from Greece. We are glad to have you.
thank you.
Catherine is a singer, and she's a harpist, a model, a composer, and a visual artist that is passionate about creating unique soundscapes that resonate across different genres. She uses a mix of hand-drawn art along with AI to build wondrous backdrops for the music she creates. And I've been telling you, I've been listening to your music all morning, getting ready so I could get in the right headspace to talk to you this morning.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for listening.
Yeah, and I've really enjoyed it as well. It made me wish that I had brushed up on my Spanish or paid more attention to Spanish when I was in school, listening to everything. But it's absolutely wonderful. All
Thank
right,
you.
Catherine. So we're going to talk a lot about what you do in music today. Let's find out a little bit about you as a person. Catherine, where were you born?
So I was born in Peru. So I'm from South America. My dad is French. So I always had this dream of going to France and just, knowing the European culture. And in 2014, I decided to move to Europe, and I've been living there since then. And it's been quite the experience. I learned a lot. So it served me a lot to develop my art and my skills and the things that I wanted to do. And internet for me has been like the best resource, because when I was a small little girl, music lessons were very expensive, so I couldn't
Yes.
really take music lessons. So my education in music started way later, thanks to the internet, where I could find like online courses. I remember I started
Yep.
with Coursera, that
Yep.
or
Yep. Yep. Yeah,
and
you can. Internet's great for finding all kinds of resources and things to learn all kinds of skills.
yes, you can learn literally anything
Yeah.
on the internet, and I took that opportunity to learn music until I finally could afford having like proper lessons with teachers, which is where
Yeah.
I am right now. And I am preparing myself to learn to compose music for movies. I recently found out that, wow, like I don't know where my music really comes from, because when my whole life, like, my parents are not like very music experts, or
Right.
there's these people who know so many bands and groups and artists. Like, grew up with radio music
Yeah. Yeah.
basically,
Yeah.
and it's nothing like the music that I do, really. It's just different. So I was wondering, where does this come from? And then I realized it came from movie soundtracks, because I love watching movies, especially the animation
Yeah.
movies. And I realized that I was just soaking in all that music unconsciously, and then it was coming out somehow on my own work. So It's something that I love, like telling stories. And the song form sort of became a little bit too small for the things, a too small container, I mean, for the
Right.
things I wanted to convey.
Yeah, well, I can definitely tell your storytelling in your music, especially watching a couple of videos that you've made for some of your pieces. We'll get into that. Um, so you're in Greece. Is that where you stay now, or are you kind of traveling around in Europe?
I am traveling around for now. Is another dream of mine always was like when I picture my life, this question that they ask you, what do you want to be when you are older?
Yep.
And I always picture my life as being like this huge adventure, like in books, like
Yeah.
in
Yeah. Yeah.
adventure books where the characters are traveling and doing things and discovering things. And I was picturing my life like this, and of course it's not always that glamorous, but I managed to be able to work from home and travel and use that as inspiration for my art, all the places that I visit.
Yeah. Well, I need to have you speak to both of my daughters because that's exactly how I want them to do is to not get stuck doing something and then that's where you kind of have to be. You can have find something you like to do that gives you the freedom to go wherever you want to go.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
it's
yeah,
very important.
kudos to you for following your dream and your passion, and then going right after it.
Thank
That's
you.
outstanding. All right, so your native language is Spanish. Do you speak any other languages? Oh, I guess English too.
Yeah, I speak English and French because of my dad. And then in high school, I learned a little bit of German and Italian, but I forgot mostly of it because if you don't practice, it goes away.
Right, right. And that seems common. I spoke with a lady that we had a podcast the other day, and those were the exact same languages that she spoke. And
Nice.
she grew up in Italy,
Mm,
and but her parents were Bengali, and
okay.
so she spoke that and English and but German and French as well, and she was learning Spanish too.
Nice.
So
Yeah, it's
that's
very, very nice languages to learn, really. And
yeah,
they're not that different between each other. Italian, if you speak Spanish or something, yeah, it's Spanish. Italian is so easy. And Portuguese is
gotchas.
like, I don't speak Portuguese, but when I listen to a Portuguese speaking, I can
Right.
understand the general
Yeah, yeah,
idea.
yeah. Yeah,
Um,
similar to Spanish.
yeah, it's very similar. You can understand many things. And Greek, it's strange because even though many words in Greek sound the same and are very similar, like in theater, for example,
Yeah.
in Spanish is teatro, and
Yep.
in Greek is theatro. So it's very
Gotcha.
similar. But when you hear someone speaking in Greek, they go so fast. I cannot catch any word, and even though they have plenty of words that are so identical to Spanish, so similar, but the overall speaking thing, you don't get anything.
All right, I've got a relative. She married someone who was 100% Greek, and the whole family flew over for the wedding. And the place cards at the wedding were crazy because these people flew over, and their last names were like 30 characters long, and there was only like one vowel. At least in American speak English that was in there, and the rest were consonants. We were like, "How do you say this?"
Yeah, it's very funny.
Uh, all
And
right,
also
so let's. Oh, go right ahead.
they have a very different alphabet. It's like very similar to their ancient alphabet. So I
Yeah,
don't know how much modern Greek is different from ancient Greek, but the alphabet, from what I've seen in the ruins and everything, seems to be quite the same,
yeah,
and that makes it even more difficult because the letters are completely different. And then you're like, how do you pronounce this? And they tell you, and it's like, oh, it was so easy, but the alphabet make it look like it was
right, right,
strange.
right, right. All right, so let's get into some of your music. So you had mentioned a little bit before about starting music. When did you realize that you wanted to get into creating your own music?
So I always loved music and singing. I was always singing and playing with around with music, but because of that fact of not being able to have lessons because they were expensive, I
Right.
obviously didn't have any training. So every time I would sing or do something, people were like, "No, shut up! Don't do that. It's not like." I had this thing where you are good at several things,
Yeah.
which is nice to have, but then it's it's like I was expected to be good at certain things and not to others unconsciously for some reason. And now that I come to think about it, looking back in the past, I see that most of the people who were telling me, "No, stop singing, you're not good at that," were people in my school. So it was like, okay, you're so good in a school, you cannot be also good at this.
Right.
And I actually was like, I wanted the opposite. I
Yeah.
didn't
Yeah.
care much about the school, but it just came easy. Like sometimes you, it's just a coincidence where your way of learning coincides with the way schools teach. Like it's just memorizing things, but that's not really learning. So
No.
even though I did good at the school, I feel like it's not a fair way of teaching because not everyone goes well at the school, and that doesn't mean they are stupid or
Right.
anything.
Right.
It's just,
Right. Yeah.
it's
Well. Yeah. Most of what you learn is by what you do. So
exactly.
um,
So
you got
at
to
some
get your
point, yeah, absolutely.
yeah. You got to
So
go out and do stuff to find out what you love to do and what you like.
exactly, and not let anyone decide for you. Like, no, now that you are good, because you can be good at things that are not really the thing you want to do, and you
Yeah.
can have difficulty for the thing you really want to do. That was my case at the beginning. And that doesn't mean that you should, how you say that, conform to the thing that's
Yes.
coming easy. Just it's just because school is something you have to do whether you like it or not. And so that doesn't mean that the subjects that you are taught there are going to be what you have to do. You just
Right. Right.
need to practice. And sadly, everything art is has this label of, no, you're gonna stay poor if you do art, don't do
Yeah,
that.
yep, yep, yep. A lot of people, yep. You don't need to go into that. Don't go into art or music or acting and
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. And this is not new. It has been like that forever. This morning I
Yep,
was reading Michelangelo's biography. You know, the this guy that painted
yep,
the so his father, so his family was like a good family, but they lost prestige with time. Things happen,
yep,
and they became poorer, and so they were not in that nice social position anymore. So when he wanted to be an artist, his father went crazy because he's like, no, our family, an artist is, we are going to be even poorer.
yeah,
And
yeah.
it's from someone from your level of society, you cannot be an artist. It's like too low for us. But in the end, he was so willing to do that. He managed to convince his father to put him with in a artistic education, because education system worked different at that time. So if you were
Yeah,
a child and you said, I want to be an artist, they will put you as an apprentice with
yeah,
someone, and you will learn from very young to do that thing.
yeah. They sure did.
uh, and so not only did he do well with his art, but he also was able to buy more properties and assets, and he basically brought his family back to its lost glory. So
Wow,
it's to show that you have to follow what you feel you are here in this world to do,
that's right.
because yeah, you can always fail, but at least you failed at something you like doing.
Yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah.
Jim Carrey's father failed in a job he hated, and he never tried his chance as a comedian, you know?
Yep.
So if the chance of failing is there anyway, why not doing it something you love, right?
Yep. The list of famous artists whose parents forbid them to become artists is very long, and they all
Yeah,
became very successful anyways,
yeah,
because they follow what your passion is,
exactly.
which is exactly who I talk to on this podcast, is people following their passion.
Yeah.
Um, what inspirations do you pull from for your music?
So a lot from history, literature, cinema, obviously
Hmm.
storytelling, novels, fiction, specifically all that is 19th century literature is my absolute favorite. So that
I can,
ranges. Yes.
yeah, I was gonna say I could tell listening to your song Kiro yesterday. I was watching it, and it was very medievalish and very epic. So it definitely was pouring through there.
Yes, absolutely. Medieval times, like as a whole, it's very inspiring to me. And I'm not the only one. Like when you see most fantasy movies and books, there's something magical about the Middle Ages for some
Yes, there
reason.
is.
We shouldn't idealize that because it had a lot of problems back then.
About to say it was. If we all woke up in the 17th century, we would not think it was great or magical.
Yeah, exactly. Because actually, if we would bring someone from those times to now, they will find our world, basically with different worlds, much more magical. Like, oh my goodness,
Yes,
like
they
you
would.
have you are talking to this rectangle here, and there's someone trapped in that rectangle and is talking to you. Where is that person?
Right.
Uh, and so there's something mystical about those times that we cherish and idealize and love, and it has this flavor. Even Lord of the Rings has this sort of medieval little flavor
Yeah.
here and there. And yeah, we all love that. So medieval times as a whole aesthetic, I love, and also the Celtic Viking sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then for the literature, I am all about 19th century literature. So that ranges from science fiction that was created in the 19th century with Jules Verne, H.G. Wells, those people. And then you have obviously romantic literature, Victor Hugo, these people. You have Gothic literature that developed in English speaking countries like Edgar Allan Poe, Emily Dickinson, J, um, Jane Eyre is the book. You have
Mhm.
the Sisters Bronte, all these type of things, and then there's this counterpart. There is the realism. So that was more in France. There was French romantic literature, like the Phantom of the Opera, for example,
Right.
is a book, a romantic book. But in France they were more into the realism, like, and even naturalism, like Flaubert, Emile Zola. I don't like those, because they have this message that you like is this they use all this Darwin theory
Right.
that
Right.
says everything has a place and everyone has a place. So if you try to go out your place, and let's say you were born poor, this is your place, stay there. And in my stories, because they portray reality,
Yeah.
um, I show you that it's always about a character that is poor. He or she goes to Paris to find fortune, and things always go wrong, and they even dead or go back to where they were before, or they are worse than when the story started. So it's like saying,
Right.
you should stay in your place calmly, accept what it was given to you, and not try to reveal against that, because society, it's a mirror of nature and everything has its place. So I don't like realistic literature, because of that. Not all
Right.
of it. For example, Jane Austen is also sort of realism branch of literature, but she is not that conformist. It's more into love, romantic
Yeah, yeah,
love
yeah.
side of things, but she doesn't have that message. So I avoid those. I don't think that's reality. I don't think reality is malleable, and if you think and you have a vision of something, you work towards that, you can change that reality that looks so daunting now, right? If you take it
Right.
like a game, this is an illusion, and I can move through the illusion and change the illusion to something I like better.
Yeah, well, I'm sure a lot of the artists in those time in the 18th and 17th centuries probably, that's what people were told for thousands of years to,
Hmm.
you have your caste system, your level of society, and people, you stay where you are. You don't rise up, you don't go down. That way the royalty stays royalty, and the servants and the serfs stay where they are. And so they
Yeah.
probably, a lot of them were scared to write about or sing or paint about moving up in your station. So
Yes.
it's probably forbidden to do, or very much looked down for from harsh punishment if you did.
Yeah, the thing with art in those times is several things. So first of all, most artists needed to have like a sponsor that would be those
Yes.
rich families. So you obviously wouldn't criticize them because you would
No.
lose the
Hmm.
sponsorship.
That's
That's
right.
for one. Second one, the way you would have itinerant artists that will go from village to village or city from city to city, and they
Yep.
would criticize public figures and powerful families.
And
But
then leave
that's
town.
why, yeah, but not
Yep.
only leave town, they would have masks, so that the theater masks,
Yes.
this genre that generated in Italy called Commedia dell'arte, that was with archetypical characters that were always the same, and they will have a mask that was specific to that character, and that character was an archetype, so it could be like the doctor and the soldier, for example, or the etc., the king, and they were anonymous. So
Right.
an actor will spend 7 years of his life just mastering one character that they will choose for them, and this character will have a mask, and then it wasn't the individual person anymore. So you see the doctor, and the doctor is saying something against the Medici, for example,
Yep.
and the Medici couldn't denounce anyone or punish anyone because A is a doctor, is the doctor of the theater. It's a character. You don't know who it is. It could be any actor, just impersonating an archetype. So that was a very powerful tool for criticizing society and trying to bring light to people that, hey, this should be different, because
Yeah.
they would do a lot of bad things to the people in certain periods of crisis. Like they will promise something to the groups that were trying to fight for social rights, etc., and then they will betray them and things like that, and things will be back to how they were before. And so one day I was browsing on Twitter, and I found this tweet of someone saying, "Oh, when we had kings, things were better because kings cared about their people." And you can see it in the architecture, because the architecture is, you have very nice architecture in all of Europe, the cathedrals, the churches, museums, palaces, etc.
Right.
And I was like, I don't know in which world you are living,
Yep.
but
That's right.
most of them, just to give a very fast illustration of how much they care about the people, kings it would have, like, when they were children, they will have a child that whose job was to receive the punishment, sorry, like, if you were the child future king, the prince, right,
Yep.
and you do some naughty thing, you couldn't be punished because you are the prince, so they can't touch you, so they will hit the other poor
It's
child.
thank your friend instead.
Exactly. So and his only job was to receive the punishment for what the other did. So that's how much they cared. It's just
Right,
an example, and those nice architecture was there, and next to it would be people with no home, no shoes,
right.
no nothing, and dying with hunger and cold. We don't have a physical trace of that. So yeah.
No, the only the nice anything nice and clean that was built during those days were things where your royalty would go. If they
Yeah.
didn't go there, then it was going to be awful.
Yeah,
That's for
exactly.
sure.
So it was just for them, and now it's open for everyone, for an entrance fee, of course, because now we have this date, and
Yeah.
it's not that bad because, well, I can still believe that this obviously needs a maintenance. So I believe you are paying a ticket also for maintaining this place
Hmm.
in a good state, right? But we have earned a lot in terms of democratization, opening of opportunities
Yes.
today.
All right. So well, that was a good little background into medieval government and how all that worked. So your song. So we'll get back to your music. Your song, Quiero. You did this with Jose Andrea. Did I hope I got his name correct?
Yeah.
Um, so that led me look up his music because I wasn't familiar with him as an artist, and I was pleasantly surprised about being a metal Spanish artist. He was pretty hard rock, which I had never heard before. Just 'cause I just never looked for that genre, so I really enjoyed listening to that. I was really impressed. I was listening. Uh, you start Quiero, and I was really enthralled with the artwork that went with the music video, and then all of a sudden, Jose just roared in with this hard rock line, and my eyes, I was like, "Whoa, what did I just hear?" And
That's awesome.
so I really enjoyed deep diving into his music too. What brought that collaboration together?
So he I just started my, like, seriously, my career in 2020 with the pandemic, whereas he has been doing music for like more than 20 years now. He's been in a
Yes.
couple different bands, and so I when I wrote that song, I knew it had to be a duet. It was what the song was demanding, like
Yeah.
asking for. It's
Yeah.
something.
Definitely, it was.
Yeah.
With
So
the
I
two people. Yep.
Exactly. So I obviously having collaborations and duets like this are part of it, like a strategy for promoting your own work,
Right.
and it's something that is done. But I don't like to force duets just to have that promotion, right? So I'd rather, if the song asks for it, I will do whatever it takes to have that collaboration if possible. But if the song is not asking for any duet or any nothing, I just leave it like that and promote it in other ways, because otherwise it feels artificial when it's just kind of forced into it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I felt this had to have it had to have a male voice in it. And so I was just talking with some people I knew, and then I happened to find a photographer who knew him, and he told me, "Hey, maybe I can try to connect you with him and see if he wants to do the collaboration, etc." And so it all turned out well. He listened to the song. He liked the song, so the photographer connected me to him. He told me that he was really looking forward to participate in that project. So the song was already all written, and I just needed
Gotcha.
the male voice. And we booked the studio and everything, and he came. He already rehearsed everything, and the result was really nice. And he really got that contrast between my parts that are more princess like,
Yes.
more
Yeah. You had this beautiful
softer.
melodic lines and phrases that you were singing, and then
Mhm.
he just slices in there with this rock voice. It was really great. I loved it.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
and that was really nice.
we have a group here in the States called Evanescence, and it gave me a little bit a vibe of them just a little bit too. Uh,
Yeah, I
the
love
build
I
up you had.
yeah, totally. I really like Evanescence. I would they have a little bit more towards gothic
Yes, they do.
aesthetic, but definitely we are all under the same umbrella.
Yep.
It's heavy metal. I don't like much entering into the sub genres that has been created all those labels,
Yeah.
because I feel actually heavy metal is, and it comes from rock, and rock seems to be like a very
It's a big
sorry,
umbrella for sure. Rock is
yeah,
very
like
big umbrella.
it's very loose. You have a lot of freedom to do
Yeah.
things, and you can have rock like Beach Boys, or you can have rock like Judas Priest in his first albums,
Yep.
and they develop afterwards what will be heavy metal. But this whole range of things, right? And it got elements from different types of music as well. So I feel that if it's a genre out there that really gives you freedom to experiment
Yeah.
within the popular music, that will be rock and heavy metal. So I don't think all these subcategories that they are making all the time, I don't think it's that important.
No, I don't either. That's for sure.
Categorize to this need. I got a comment once on one of my songs of a person. They were saying something like, "Your song is kind of between power metal and folk metal. You should choose one." And I'm like,
No, you should choose one.
it's actually nice that I came up with something different,
Right.
new. I don't know. People say it sounds different, it sounds original, and I'm glad it is. But I don't need to like force a category. So now I'm gonna create a Catherine heavy metal subgenre.
Yeah.
Makes no sense at all.
Now, I am a big fan of mixing things together that you haven't really heard before.
Yeah,
So when you have your beautiful voice sing, and you've got these sort of medieval Renaissance kind of musical lines going through, and we'll get into your harp playing here in just a second. And you've got this going on, and then the metal starts to come in with the rock entrance and the guitar entrance, and then you meld all those together at the end of the song. Yeah, I'm a big fan of stepping out of tradition and mixing all kinds of traditions together. The more you can
yeah.
mix, the better.
Yes, also because if you try to do, like, I'll tell you an anecdote. I have a friend who is a musician in the Spanish scene, and he's like 65 years old. So, like, my father is like a father, and we were out one day, and he was sent something. A fan of him sent him a song that he made, and he wanted him to listen to it, and he listened to it, and he told the bartender, who is his friend, because he always goes to that bar, and he said, "Oh, that reminds me to what was I doing in my 20s." And I found
Right.
that really sad, because people got so obsessed with that sound, they cannot go and do something else, and they forget that these people who are 65 now, they revealed against what was there in their times, and they created something new, and that's how this sound exists. But if
Yeah.
you keep, it becomes like a non-official conservatory, and you keep repeating the recipe over and over, and then you wonder why rock is dead, quote unquote, or is not moving forward, etc. And it's like you need to keep going,
Right.
and
You need
even
to come up with new
revealing.
things. Yeah.
Yes, and even revealing against what was previously done, and that's how it always worked. Like, if you go from classical music, which is actually 18th century movement, and then
Yeah.
get the 19th century music that is more romantic, symbolic, it was like going against what was done
Yeah,
previously.
they were going against all those rules about, how to follow chord progressions and what's supposed to go together with other patterns. And the romantics just said, forget about that. We're gonna do all kinds of new things.
Exactly, and you cannot do parallel fifths and parallel octaves. We are gonna do all of that only,
Yes,
and
they
you
did.
see it will work. So that's what
uh,
it's demanded of the young generations. I think is to what this psychoanalysis, how it was called. I forgot the name of this guy. My goodness, it's very well known. This the guy who invented psychoanalysis,
Freud.
Freud. Freud.
Yep.
He said you have to kill the father, and
Oh
that
no.
yeah, it's not like you have to literally kill your
Right, right,
father.
right,
It's like you need to do tabula rasa. I mean, to swipe off the table, you have
right.
it clean empty, and you start all over. Um, Not absolutely, because it's not like going back to zero
Yeah,
totally, but
tradition
like
is good, but you don't want to get stuck in tradition.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, you were talking about parallel fifths and things, and I was like, "Oh, that takes me right back to a music theory class." And my professor would say, "Oh, you can't do that," and I would say, "Sure, I can. I'm just a romantic." He was like, "No, that doesn't count. You can't write those."
Oh no, no, it's a matter of
Uh,
context. They
yes.
actually, when you dive deep into that, if you are into a context, meaning that it works within the piece, so you can have a piece where it's built upon fifths, parallel fifths, and octaves, and it's gonna sound well, because the thing with fifths and octaves is that it's an interval that is very strong, and it's like a statement. It's
Yeah.
something with a lot of character. So when you don't use it carefully, it kind of stands out in a bad way in your piece. But if the foundation of your piece is all parallel fifths and octaves, it's going to work because it's all in this strong statement. So
Yeah.
it kind of soften themselves and neutralizes
Yeah.
its
Yeah. Yeah.
channel. And the same happens with fourths. I love the interval of fourths.
Hmm.
It sounds so epic, and so for example, Smoke on the Water riff is built on
Yeah. Yeah.
force.
Right.
Richie Blackmore loves using force, and I love him for that. And if it's in the context of the song, it's all built upon that foundation. It's not going to sound tense or weird.
Right. If that's what you always do, then that's what it's going to be.
Mhm.
Now, so your music has a lot of visual aspects to it. Whenever I look up your music online, the artwork, the cover artwork, and then the videos that go along with it are absolutely gorgeous. And
Thank
so
you.
you do a lot of use a lot of AI to develop some of the backgrounds. But a couple of your videos, I read they're animated, but not cartoon animated, but like hand drawn images that move together that are absolutely great. And I believe I read, so like for Kiero, you drew all of that video. Is that right?
Yeah, so for the four songs that I have, only the first one, Guerra, Odio y Dolor, War, Hate, and Sorrow, I didn't do the visuals. That I hired someone, but it was expensive, and that's how I
Yes.
ended up learning animation.
Hmm.
And for the other three, I didn't use any form of AI. It's AI, sorry. It's all hand drawn, and basically when you say cartoon animation, 2D animation, frame by frame animation is sort of is the same thing. So
Right.
that's frame by frame means that I drew each and every frame. I did it with Procreate, which is a great tool for illustration, but at the time the part for animation was very very basic. So the most basic thing you can, it's not really designed for doing an entire video clip. It's designed for doing a small GIF or things like
Right, right,
that.
right.
And somehow I managed to learn to use it really fast and create entire video clips from that. It was really crazy. I was very proud. But yeah, I drew every single thing. And now Procreate has launched a specialized app that's called Procreate Dreams that is only for animation, has way more tools. And I'm like, why didn't this exist 2 years
Right.
ago? But
Well,
yeah,
your
uh,
creation is wonderful.
thank you.
Without it, not speaking Spanish, I would have not gotten the message
Oh,
of the music nearly as deep as I did. So it was wonderful
the
artwork to go
effort was
along with
worth
it.
it.
Yeah, it was wonderful artwork to go along with it.
Thank you.
Um, so you are also a harp player.
Yeah.
When did you start picking up the harp? Because that's not a common instrument that a lot of people learn to play.
Well, I remember when I was like 12 years old, I had a friend who was like, "Oh, the harp." I had never seen a harp before in real life, I mean. And I had this friend saying, "Oh, the harp is so difficult because this and that." And I have this habit, this sort of ritual to always tell myself when I want to learn something new, this is easy. This is super mega easy, even if it's not that true. Because if you frame your brain to believe something is easy, you will have a easier time learning that thing. If you
Right,
already are like, oh, this is hard, I won't be able to do that, I've never done something similar, you are adding too much complication to yourself that is unnecessary. So just go there like, ah, this is easy, I will get the hang of it really fast. And it's a sort of positive self-lying
right.
uh, positive
And so,
conditioning.
yeah, and anything you
So
want to learn, as long as you put it in a positive framework,
yeah, it's
that's
easier.
certainly helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes your life easier and happier and less frustrating. And so I got that idea in myself and I was like, yeah, we'll see if it's that difficult. Like, I cannot, for some reason, I cannot believe you. Maybe because this girl didn't play the harp herself. So it was like hearing business advice from someone who never did business, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
so I it got in my head and it was there. Years passed and then like a couple years ago I said, okay, now I will try and I will see if that was really true. And I got the hang of it quite easy. Like, it was natural for me. The harp in particular, for example, wind instruments for me are like, I can't.
No,
I it's hard for me. Like, I have there's a special flute in Peru that's called, we call it quena,
yeah,
and you need to work, even like just being able to produce a sound, you need to learn with practice how to put your lips, etc. I've
right.
never been able to make that thing work. It's just, I can't. So and then my 60-year-old friend that I told you about, he plays the flute, the one that
Yeah.
you play like that, and he tried to teach me. It was impossible. So I am not.
Flute was the hardest instrument for me when I
Yeah,
was going through them in college for music education majors. You spend a little bit of time on just about everything,
yeah.
and the flute was by far the most awful thing I had to try to learn.
Wow, yeah, it's
I did just enough for my teacher to say, okay, you can move on to the next one. It was
yeah,
an awful
yeah.
instrument to learn.
Absolutely. All the wind instruments, I actually have huge admiration for all the wind instrumentalists out there. I don't know how you do that. Guys, for me, however, strings, all kind of the strings come very, very easy to me. So violin comes, when I tried the violin, it was a friend of mine. She was studying in conservatory and she was teaching me, and she was so surprised. I couldn't understand it at first, and she was like, "You're getting it so fast. Are you sure you didn't do class violin lessons before?" And I swear by God, I've never taken violin lessons before. And so my 65-year-old friend tried to teach me to play that, and it was impossible. I said, "No, this thing is not for me." And he was
Right,
laughing at
right.
me like, "It's so, for him it's so easy." But when I tried to put him on the harp, he was like, "No, this is so weird. So many strings. I don't know how you do it." So
So, did you start on a like a regular harp? Most people would think of the really tall. You sit down, it weighs a ton, and you have to use a dolly to move it around. Did you start on a harp like that, or did you start on something smaller?
So you're talking about the pedal harp. That's the
Yeah, the
kind of
pedal harp.
harp that has some pedals, and
Hmm.
that those are the ones that are used in orchestras because they cover all the tonality, all the keys that you can do,
Yes,
all the
they've
keys
got
that
plenty of
exist.
strings to do that. Yeah,
You have like 40 something strings on those, and yeah, they can play all the keys. And whereas the lever harp or the Celtic Irish harp, those cannot there are certain keys they cannot do. I started with the lever harp because I actually wanted the lever harp. I
yeah.
am in all this Celtic Irish
Hmm.
fantasy
Yeah,
sound,
that
so
makes a
I
lot of sense.
yeah.
Yeah, sure does. So the lever harp, what's the octave range on a lever harp?
So depends on the strings. Like I have one, my biggest one has 36 strings, and so it goes like two octaves
Yeah,
below central C. So C4, 3, 2, and then you have, I think it might be like 7 octaves, roughly.
gotcha. Well, that's still plenty of room to
Yeah.
play. My goodness, 7 octaves. That's quite a lot.
Hmm.
You got a Mariah Carey singing range worth on your on your harp there.
Yeah.
Um, so, do you normally do solo work for your harp or for your music, or do your talents lend to any ensembles or anything?
For now, I'm doing on my own because you know that heavy metal is like a mostly a band
Yeah,
um, genre, right? Yeah, everyone has his their band and their friends. I see.
yeah.
For example,
But heavy
Coldplay.
metal's better with an orchestra with it. I always thought.
Yeah, yeah, I love the
Yeah,
Hurricane 2000 of the Scorpions. It's amazing and it really sounds better. Even though sometimes I was trying to look for references on how you do the bass line when you have an orchestra because you have the double bass and the
yeah,
electric bass. So how do you put that together? And I was very pissed off by the guitars because they sound a lot, and I was trying to get the sound of the bass line, and it was really hard to listen to that with the guitars and all the
yeah,
electric things going on, filling the whole sonic space. But when you know how to do it, it's really fun to work with both electric and acoustic sounds. It's really amazing. And so the bands, I am so jealous of Coldplay because they met at the university and they became friends, and then they
right.
all built this band together as friends. It's like the dream, like the
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
ideal thing. But I've never found people who will share the same mindset as me for both the music, the sound, and the work ethic. Like most people sadly will go already like, I will never live off of my music anyway, so obviously you won't put the same effort as if you
yeah,
believe you can do something with
yeah.
music. So at some point I was tired of waiting for people, and I decided to just start on my own, and then
That's right. Well, if you stay on your own, other people will find you. That's for sure. Uh,
exactly.
if you just keep doing the work, other people will pick you up because your work is really good. That's for
Thank you.
sure.
Thank
Um,
you.
so you've got multiple things published on Spotify, and you can find your music most any places. Do you have anything that'll be coming up in the near future?
So yeah, for now I am all focused on this because I will start on April a program for becoming a movie soundtrack composer.
Hmm.
So I still want to work on albums, EPs. I am not that, like, I try to resist because when I released my 4 EP songs plus that cover that is Reina de mis sueños, it's a cover. everyone was telling me, especially in the old school side of things, like, no, you
Right.
should have an entire album with 13 tracks, etc.
Yeah,
And I
you
was
don't
like,
need that anymore.
yeah, not only you don't need that anymore, it's just that that piece of work doesn't need that anymore. It's a
Mm-mm.
story on its own and it's close with quiero, and I
Yep.
tried, but it's like, it's, it doesn't need anything else. I need
No.
to move on to other things. So I'm working on an album that is gonna be called Entelequia. That word also exists in English, and it's a word that I picked up on purpose. A strange and not very much used word. It's like a utopia. Basically, it's the same
Yeah.
meaning as utopia, but even more exaggerated. Like a utopia is something that, oh, it's ideal, we wish it was like that, but we cannot have it like that because the world is not perfect, right? So entelequia is that with steroids. So it's such an ideal perfect thing that is obviously not true, right?
Right.
And it's kind of ironical because then it's just like a social critique of the things we've been experiencing in the last 2 3 years with all the lockdowns,
Yeah, yeah,
enforcement,
yeah.
mandates, So it goes, it's like my vision on that, how I experience that, and what I think about that, basically, all put in those songs. And still don't know if it's going to be an EP or a full length album. Hopefully, it's a full length album, but I won't force it.
Right. Well, people don't digest music in albums anymore now.
Hmm.
With the internet and streaming, people listen to individual stuff. Or if you're like my kids, they listen to about 20 seconds of a song and then they skip to the next one. And they hardly ever listen to a whole thing all at once. It's
Yeah,
just
it's
skip, 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 skip.
Yeah, well, that's I have a possible explanation, sadly, for that. Not only about the attention span and all of this, but we have to admit that many songs in the past, obviously, there were bad things in the past. It's not about idealizing the past, but like the big songs that we remember, the classics, they have a lot of nuance, and you will go from very slow and soft to very strong and edgy,
Yep.
and with a lot of the instrumentation will change, you will have dynamics, and that will keep the attention moving forward. And you were also expecting something to arrive, right? And you will have an unexpected instrument that will get in doing
Yep.
something, and that will wake
That
you
third
up.
section of the song to get your to keep you
Exactly.
interested.
Exactly. And today, most songs are the
Flat.
same all
Yeah.
along. So it happens to me myself as well. Sometimes I have a song being sent and I listen to the first 10 seconds and I get bored of it. And because literally this song, you listen to the first 10 seconds, you've listened to all of it, sadly. So people have,
Yeah.
for some reason, forgotten the importance of dynamics in music, and that's sad.
Yep. You got to have a hook or a catch or something to get your ear. That's for sure. Um, so I'm real excited to see what you do in movie soundtracks and stuff, and that'd be amazing to see your name up there. Say, look at that! I talked to her. She did the whole music. That's great.
Yeah.
What are some of your favorite movie soundtracks?
Oh, so I recently rewatched E.T.
Ah, yes,
And oh my goodness, that soundtrack is so beautiful. And obviously, it's an old movie, so they don't have all those virtual instruments, libraries, processed sounds, super modern
no,
sounding. He all only quote unquote has I don't know if it's the standard basic orchestra with a minimum amount of instruments or if it's like a bigger orchestra, but he just has the sounds of the orchestra, and only
right,
quote unquote with that he manages to do something that's really really conveying a lot of feelings. And I guess everyone has seen ET by now, but when ET is like dying, all this scene when he's dying, and there's
yeah,
all these FBI people, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And I was there, and the music was sounding, and it was so everything so moving. I was there crying, no, don't do that to him, etc. And the
Well,
music.
you can't go wrong with John Williams. I mean, he's the master of themes and giving each character an emotion and a hook that goes along with them. I mean, nobody does it better than John Williams.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. You have like it has themes, like each character and situation
Mm-hmm.
has a theme, and then you have Ennio Morricone, of course, with the instrumentation. I love how he uses like instruments that you wouldn't think of at first.
Mm-hmm.
He's really surprising you with that. And then Howard Shore with the whole Lord of the
Yeah.
Rings trilogy as
Yeah.
like
Yeah. That was
Obi-Wan.
definitely new. For what got me with Lord of the Rings when it came out was the meter. It was not your standard like 4/4 or 3/4. He said it in five or something when it first came out. And I was
It's the
like,
it's the it's set in 5/4, I think.
yeah, I was
Especially
thinking, I was
for
like, I couldn't remember. I was like, do I like this? I don't know. It's so different. I was like, I gotta
yeah,
like it. It's different.
it's not something you are used to, but especially for Isengard scene, it
Yeah.
made total sense because Isengard is they are building this artificial the Uruk-hai who are mixed between I don't know the name in English with orc and something else, and
The
so it's
elves and the humans. Yeah.
exactly. So it's not something that existed in the nature of that world. It's
Right.
something like a DNA mutant thing that they were creating. So it was artificial, and he was killing trees to do his factory there.
You're
So
right. Right.
factory industry, man-made. So it had an evil, right? So
Yeah.
it had to have like this strange rhythm that it's evil, that it's something we are like it's made for it. You are supposed not to like that very much. So it
Yeah.
was very genius election there. It's one
I've
of my
got to
favorites.
ask the bells in the background. That I'm loving the sound of them. What are they for? I'm hearing
Uh,
them.
sorry, I didn't understand your
There's
question.
some bells going on in the background. I can
Ah,
hear.
yes, there is a. I what I love about Greece. I am in a city near Athens, very near
Yeah.
Athens. It's called Piraeus, and Greece has stayed very traditional in many ways, and it's like because of the history they have, they are quite a few years behind. In a good sense, especially with what's going on with the world in general,
Right.
and in Europe, many things are being like distorted on purpose, and here they have stayed in a very traditional, in a good way, state, and
Hmm.
there is a church nearby, and every time there is the bells ringing like in the old times, so that's
Yes,
really
I love
nice.
it. I was thinking, man, I was like, that's the downfall of living in the United States. We don't get that cultural
Oh,
heritage you can get from living in some place that's rich in age and has just been around for so long. Yeah,
yeah.
no, I was digging the church bells. I was a little jealous.
Well, I'm glad you, thanks to technology, you could listen to them and
Yep, I could
enjoy
hear them
them.
a little bit. Um, so I went through your TikTok yesterday, and a video went across that caught my interest. You talked about the difference between 440 hertz and 432.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I don't think I had ever heard that before. So I got really surprised how fascinated I got reading up on the difference between the hertz because I never really thought much about it. So do you write in fourth? Well, I don't know if most people know, but most music is tuned to 440 hertz is the frequency of practically all music that people listen to, and that's
Mhm.
the tune. But there's a lot of people that say 432 hertz is more in line with the frequency of the earth and the natural sounds that are around us, and so they
Mhm.
like to use that hertz instead of 440. So
Yeah.
I never thought about it, and it's not something I've tried to do. So what is your what have you noticed about using the different hertz?
Yeah, okay. So the frequencies is like the level of the sound, right? And each instrument will have like a set of frequencies, and each note it has a frequency, and that's like a scientific thing, and it's
Yep,
absolute. So if you have a A4, I think it is, that has 440 hertz. It's
yep,
absolute, and a C4 will have its own frequency, etc. And so before there was a standard that this standard. The thing is that it mixes with this spiritual thing, as you said, is more aligned with our true nature, etc., etc. And also this standardization of the hertz that we are going to use as a as a reference for tuning everything. It
right.
came after World War II, and so this some people say it's a legend, and some people really believe in that. That it was a Nazi who decided that to standardize in that particular
Oh,
frequency
I'm
because
already
that's
against it then.
yeah, so it has I don't know if it's true or not, because some people swear by it, others totally dismiss it. And so I this is what they say, that it would have been the Nazis who did that on purpose to purposefully disbalance people, disconnect them, and control them easier, etc., etc.
uh,
But the thing is that before that, each orchestra in each city would have their own tuning. And so
yep,
if you have an orchestra doing 432 or 446 or 440 or whatever you wanted,
yep,
and then you travel somewhere else, they will have their own tuning, so it was a mess. And
yep,
even before that, when we weren't really that much aware about the frequencies, um, instruments within the same orchestra would have different tunings in different frequencies, and
yeah,
that must have been funny. Um, so the reason why I've seen YouTube videos where a guy will play something in 440 and then in 432, the same exact thing, and then the voting was almost unanimous in all of the videos. Like 99.999% of people were saying that 432 sounded more relaxing and gives them more peace.
yeah,
So the reason why is that is because 432 is a lower frequency than 440. So 440 is higher, and
yeah,
high keys, high notes, high sounds tend to stress out
yeah. They're more
us.
harsh.
Yes,
Yeah,
and low sounds tend to be more relaxing for humans, for horses, for animals in general. Lower sounds are soothing. So
yeah,
there's that, but that doesn't mean it doesn't have a spiritual meaning to that. And in fact, there are several healing frequencies. So 432 will bring more peace, and there's another frequency that is more for self-esteem, let's say, and another frequency for another thing. So you basically have different frequencies that you can use to different specific spiritual problems you
right.
want
To
to
help your
solve.
mood that you want to be in.
Exactly.
Well,
So
in my reading, I saw a couple of places where Mozart tried to keep everything at 432, and I was
okay.
like, well, if it was good enough
Yeah.
for him, that's good enough for me too.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the thing that I notice is because everything now is designed for 440, is that the
Yeah,
tuning, it's a little bit less stable when you try to do that in 432, but it can be done. And it's a positive thing. So if I want to believe that 432 is gonna do good to people, it will, because I'm creating that in my mind.
yeah,
It all comes down to what you believe. In the world of a person who doesn't believe in magic, don't expect magic to happen, because they can't see it because they don't believe in it. That's why
Right.
you always have this, like, you have to believe in it. It's true. It's cliche, but
Right.
it's true. You have to believe in it, and you start seeing it, and you start seeing synchronicity, the cat that passed, and this sign that I saw, and the feather on the floor, and it's a word that someone said,
Yeah.
and it happens because you put your attention and belief to
Hmm.
it. So if you go with that good intention, saying, you know what, I want to bring peace and happiness to people, and putting my music in 432 is going to help me, then why not, right? It's
Right.
gonna sound a little bit like if I imagine the radio, for example, my song in 432 after a song in 440 is going to sound a little bit out of tune to people because you're changing the
Yeah.
calibration. So it's tricky. It's tricky, but I'm trying.
All right, Catherine. So we're coming to the end of our conversation here. So I got two little fun sections I like to go through. So here's a couple of just fun questions for for a fellow music person myself. What is the best place you've ever performed at?
Oh, so for now, I mostly performed like on TikTok, on lives. I still don't have much experience with live touring, etc. Because since I started, I really launched my career in the middle of the lockdown, so
Right.
that wasn't an option. And after that, I noticed it's like a beast on its own, like just managing the touring
It is a
business
lot.
side of
Yeah.
things.
Hmm.
And I'm more focused on building online presence first, and then performing. But at some point, I'm still am a little bit in the NFT world that moves a lot on Twitter, and doing a
Yeah.
lot of Twitter spaces. And it's really lovely to perform on Twitter spaces. First, because it's only audio, so that's great. You can focus only on the sound. And second, because the community there is so lovely, so supporting, and they really welcome you, and you can listen to others work as well. So it's like the Paris cafes in the 19th century, where
Yeah.
all the artists will find themselves and talk and exchange ideas. It's just a bigger online modern thing. So that was a good place to start showing my things live.
All right. I love it. Who are some of your favorite musical artists right now?
So right now for the singing, I love Ronnie James Dio a lot.
Yeah.
When I was a girl, and I still do like her a lot, but when I was a girl, I was also inspired by Christina Aguilera, so that's why I'm
Yeah.
telling you it's so different from what I do now. I went recently through a small Enya phase.
Yeah.
She's very relaxing. So
Yeah.
her music, sorry, is very soothing and positive, and I don't know, it has a really kind vibe in it.
Yes, it does. What type of movie do you think you would want to compose for? What
Oh,
style of movie?
I love to compose fantasy,
Yeah.
mystery type of movies, sort of Tim Burton's type of movies
Mm-hmm.
would be nice as well.
Well, you're gonna
Stop
have to take
motion.
Hans Zimmer's job if you want to write for Tim Burton. I think those two are always together. I think Tim and
Wow.
Hans Zimmer.
I said Tim Burton type, so
Right there, you go.
he didn't invent suspense type of thing. So there's always a place for everyone in this world. I don't need to take anyone's place
Or you could
to find
write
mine.
for Baz Luhrmann. He's like the musical theater version of Tim Burton.
Yeah.
He's quite good. All right, Catherine. At the end of each podcast, I ask my guests the same 5 or 6 questions, and it's always interesting to see what people come up with, the similarities. And these are super easy. Your first one: what is your favorite smell?
Jasmine and roses.
Jasmine rose. That's a good one. We had a jasmine bush when I was little growing up, so it was always one of my favorite
Mhm.
too.
Oh yeah.
Uh, what do you have a favorite kind of sandwich?
Oh, the sandwich club, chicken sandwich club thing.
Oh, a
That,
chicken club. Yep, I love it. What's your favorite kind of drink?
orange juice.
Orange juice. That's great. No, that's a good one. No one's ever said orange juice yet. I like it. What's one thing that makes you happy every single time it happens?
Seeing a cat.
Seeing a cat. We
Yes,
have
and
two cats at our house.
oh, yeah, I love cats. And here in Greece, there are plenty of cats. So
Oh
every
yeah.
5 seconds, I spot a cat, and it's like tuxedo, carré, white,
I
black.
saw a black cat on your, I guess, her TikTok or something. Was that yours?
Yes, that's my cat, Eileen.
Yeah, I love it. We have a black cat and a tuxedo cat
Oh, so
over
beautiful.
here. We've always had black and white animals for some reason. That's been our theme. Um, what kind of advice would you give yourself as a kid?
To trust herself more, to have more decision, not doubt herself so much.
Yes, that's a very common answer. Don't doubt yourself to stay the course.
Yeah.
Um, what's one of the most beautiful things you've ever seen?
Oh, I have so many things, but um wow, I am thinking about Paris. Artistically speaking, Paris is one of my favorite cities. It's still number one there
Yeah,
because it's so full of beautiful things. Even a simple water fountain has a sculpture and some beauty on it. So every time I go around the corner, I see something beautiful. And yeah, I remember I had the last time I went to Paris, I had just finished reading The Phantom of the Opera that happens
yeah.
in the Opera Renier that really exists in Paris. And then I was in a hotel with my friend and I didn't know, but when I go around the corner, I see the opera there and I was like, oh my goodness, that's
Oh,
the
there you
opera
go.
of the book. And it was so beautiful. The whole situation was beautiful.
That's my wife's dream city to go to. She's learned to speak French, but she needs people to speak French with. So she's been
Oh,
learning solo hers for a couple of years now, but she needs someone to speak to.
oh
So
yeah,
she hopefully one day she wants to go and
absolutely. She
stretch
has
her
to.
legs a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, well, Catherine, that takes us to the end of our show. It's been lovely to get to meet you and have you on and hear
Thank
your
you.
story. You can catch Catherine on Instagram or YouTube. Catch her music on Spotify as well. So go check her out and give her a listen. You will not be disappointed.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yep, Catherine, I wish you all the greatest success in what you do,
Thank
and
you.
hopefully we'll get to see your name and hear your music on the big screen coming up here in the not too far away future.
Thank you. I hope so too.
Yep. All right. Remember, folks, find what makes you happy and do it. There's a lot of life out there to live, so make it a good one. Be kind, be nice, be good, and everybody have a good week.